saw in the hood, they see it here. Like in Gambia, you go to a lot of go to a lot of stores, see a lot of Lebanese here, see a lot of Chinese here. The Chinese, they come in here, they got all kind of fishing contracts and building contracts and stuff. See a lot of Germans here, see some Indians here, and they looking at all of that, what's going on, the same way they look at all of the people who exploit black people in America. And so I'm saying that to say, I wanted to quote Sheikh Uthman Den Fodio. Tagamadahullahu bi rahmati ameen. May Allah envelop him in his mercy. Ameen. I wanted to quote him, and he has a book called Bayana Wujubu Hijra al Ibad, the uh, discussion or exposition regarding making hijra on the servants. And in that book, he has a section where he's talking about the different types of black people in Africa, the categorizations of people. So remember, the Sheikh Uthman, he died in 1870. About 200 years before him, it was another sheikh from Timbuktu, Sheikh Ahmadu Baba. A lot of people get it confused. Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, Senegal. Sheikh Ahmadu Baba, Timbuktu, a little bit earlier. Sheikh Uthman Den Fodio, he quotes Sheikh Ahmadu Baba, and he quotes from Sheikh Ahmed's book Al-Kashf, Kitab Al-Kashf wal-Bayan li Asnaf al-Majlub al-Sudan, an unveiling and a clarification regarding the different categorizations of black people, right? And he quotes Sheikh Ahmed as saying, "Innahum aslamu bila istila'i ahadin alayh." He said that verily they, meaning black people, embraced Islam without being forced by anyone. He said, verily they embraced Islam without being forced by anyone. And he said this in Arabic, right? It's extremely important. Why is that important? Because here you have a well-known scholar considered to be a mujtahid and a mujaddid, the reviver of his time, who's a student of one that they also considered to be a mujaddid. Well, a long line of reputable scholars. And just a little bit about him. If I ask you all, when did Christopher Columbus discover America? What would you tell me? And we know he ain't discovered. He got lost and bumped into America. What year was that? Can somebody tell me real quick? I wanna connect some dots for y'all. Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Isa. What year was Christopher Columbus found in America? I need to know y'all still there. Alhamdulillah. Because the comments slowed down, after my phone overheated, couldn't take this heat. Alhamdulillah. 1492. This is that was an important year. Why? Christopher Columbus was coming from Al-Andalus, Spain and Portugal, when, what they call, al último suspiro del Moro, the last cry of the Moor. They call Moor the Muslim Africans who were in Spain, right? I'm not going to go too much into that history, but Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand toppled the last stronghold of the Muslims in Spain in Granada, and Abu Abdullah, or who they call Abu Abdul, basically turned over the city to them in a treaty or a truce to avoid fighting and killing because they were overwhelmed. There's too much division and stuff going on, right? They had a celebration. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. They had a celebration, and literally, I'm not exaggerating. How are you? I'm just following you on. Oh, you follow me on Facebook? Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah. I'm helping my people understand everything over here, you know? Yeah. Alhamdulillah. When are you going back? A few weeks. Because I'm discussing with a woman there. So I'm discussing with her. So she like this African women when they put in English. So she bin. Yes. Yeah. So I will tell you, you can take it and send it to you. Okay, no problem. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Here's my beautiful day, but he was actually in his house watching me do this right here. Allahu Akbar. So yeah, so King Ferdinand, Queen Isabella, they actually had a party. Meaning when you at war, you conquer, you still, and you got the spoils of war. So they got the spoils of war of the Muslims. Christopher Columbus asked Queen Isabella to fund his trip, right? And she funded his trip. She financed his trip. The money for Christopher Columbus's trip was literally the spoils of war, the ghanima that they took from the Muslims that they conquered in Grenada. Think about it. That's 1492. That's how he made his trip. Now, remember, the Muslims are no longer in control of Spain and Portugal. There was no country named Spain and Portugal at the time. It was called Al-Andalus, right? The Iberian Peninsula. Now, that's 1492. 100 years later, 1591. Think about it. Who's the first major people to involve in the slave trade and all this stuff? It's the Portuguese. Remember, there was no such thing as Portugal at the time. So from that time up until 1591, right, the Europeans got so strong that they actually built up army and started making incursions into Africa, and they were the first ones to do slavery before everybody else, the Portuguese. Why is this important? Because the Portuguese entered Africa, and they had Moroccan soldiers. Morocco, Africa, Muslim. So the Portuguese and the Moroccans in an army, and they sacked the Songhai Empire. Songhai Empire, Timbuktu, Mali. One of their prisoners of war was this sheikh we just quoted, Sheikh Ahmadu Baba. And most of his writings that reach us and that people know about is what he wrote while he was in exile as a prisoner in Morocco. So that sheikh in one of his books is telling us that Black people who embraced Islam on the African continent have done so willingly without being forced by anyone. Why is this so important? It's important that not only we mention this quote, who made the quote, and give more context to it, but that we teach African history as it relates to Islam in more details and regular basis in America, because it's affecting relations between Africans and African Americans, because African Americans don't know history. They know make-believe history that somebody that didn't speak no native African language told them. A lot of our well-known history books of Africa of African history are written in Arabic. Tariq Sudan, Tariq Fatash, all of these books are written in Arabic. These guys don't speak no Arabic. They don't speak no Kiswahili. They don't speak no Mandinka. They don't speak no Wolof. They don't speak no nothing. They speak English, and they telling you about African history. And a lot of our people brought on to that. And so they come back here, and there's a lot of mushkil, a lot of problems, because they thinking that African culture and Islam don't got nothing to do with each other. And these people, most of these people, like here in Gambia, who you have, like we mentioned before, Mandinka, Wolof, Fulani. People have been Muslim for 1,000 years. Literally, like, you know how in Islam, when we talk about the Salaf, we talk about, you know, the first 3 generations. Some of these people, their families, their Islam goes back to the 2nd and 3rd generation of Islam. When you talk about the armies of some of the Sahaba, you know, fighting the Europeans off in North Africa. You see, that's part of the lie. Part of the lie is that the Sahaba, the Arabs, right, came into Africa and forced people to become Muslim. But they conveniently omit the fact that the Romans were running Egypt and the rest of North Africa. And when the Sahaba came in, that's who they was fighting, and that's who they ran up out of there. And then some of the Sahaba dropped further south and intermarry with the people. And this is how you get the beginning of some of the tribes like the Turabbe Fulani, the Mandinka not long after that. And this is literally during the time of the Salaf or the early part of the Khalaf, you know, after the first 3 generations. So we as Black Muslims have to learn that history. We have to make this history everyday knowledge, you know, in America, so that when Africans that are not Muslim want to come to Gambia, they have their mind on right, and, you know, not be repeating some Afrocentric slash Eurocentric inspired ideas. Now, how you gonna come to Africa to people how to become African, right? Like, it didn't really make no sense. Cats coming over here talking about, we're gonna make libations to the ancestors. See, y'all don't know what y'all doing. Y'all got that Arab religion going on. No, you don't know what you're talking about. Y'all pouring out libations, we doing tawassul. You got it all mixed up. Allahu Akbar, Wahid, Panama, Costa Rica in the building. Allahu Akbar. I'm in on this work group FB. They say Christians and Muslims are brainwashed and were enslaved by the Arabs, and Islam was forced on Africans. Yeah, exactly. And usually they point to 2 or 3 different events that happen in history. And again, they, like, for example, one of the things that they talk about is what I just mentioned, the when the Sahaba went into North Africa, conquered Egypt and went to over across Algeria, you know, Tunisia and Algeria, all of that. And they leave out the fact that who were the Sahaba fighting for the most part? They were fighting the Europeans, or what they changed in history, they call the Byzantines instead of calling them the Roman Empire. You know, they revised history and started calling the Eastern Roman Empire the Byzantium. But Allah refers to them as Rum in the Quran. Their history, they refer to themselves as Roman during that time. It was only, you know, further on in time, I forgot exactly what year, where they rebranded themselves as Byzantiums. And I personally think they did that so that